Okay, so here's the deal. I am full of so much energy today. It is so beautiful outside. The sun has been shining lately and it feels like spring, totally like spring. So check this out. We're gonna go look at this. In here it is about 25 degrees Celsius and we're at about 70% humidity. That's beautiful. I have the humidifiers on and on full blast to really pump it up while I work in here today. It feels really good. It's of course not that warm outside, but it's warm in here. The plants are happy. I'm so happy. I'm so full of energy that I figured today I think I'm gonna take you along with me to do some spring planting things. I have some various plants to plant up and stuff to do, and I figured why not bring you with me? Why not? So welcome in. Of course, it's not actually spring yet. However, I'm considering it spring because it's been acting like spring outside lately. Very warm. We have had barely any snow. This is a strange winter, but I'm gonna say summer's coming early and hope for the best and start with my spring projects pretty much now. Okay guys, so we're on a quick trip outside actually. I wanted to check on my hellebore plants because they are almost in full bloom, many of them right now. And hellebores are actually my all-time favorite plant. And I'm thinking some of you may appreciate these plants as well. So I wanted to start integrating a little bit of my outside gardening on this channel as well, because it is a big passion of mine. If that bores you, I understand. I will put timestamps below so we can get back to the inside stuff. But check this out, okay? These are a little bit out of season right now, or well, for Sweden they are. They should not be up this early, but they are. So let's take a look. I love them. So I haven't actually trimmed up these plants yet. If you guys are interested, let me know and I can do a care video on these, or just a video in general on them when I go through and trim them. Usually I remove all the old leaves for the season in very late winter because these are not any good for the plant anymore and it will produce more this year. And also I usually go through and remove all of the leaves that I've left on it over the winter, which usually helps protect it. However, I haven't done so because I'm a little confused about this year's weather, but it's really cool. Hope you don't mind me sharing a little bit of this with you. But anyway, we can go back inside. Okay, I'm gonna start off with these cute little ficus plants that I have been propagating for a while. Some of you probably recognize this plant. It is Ficus elastica Shivereana. So I've been propagating these by rooting in water. I have succeeded on this once with a Ficus lyrata quite a while ago. And so I figured I'm gonna give it a try with this, even though I was a little nervous because it is a plant that kind of disappeared from the market and I'm trying to make more. But anyway, so these are cuttings that were water rooted and have been planted into dirt afterwards and have continued to grow. They're doing very good. I need to repot them today into bigger pots because they've been in this for quite a while. And then I also have one that has been rooting in water here for a while, and I think this is sufficient roots to actually plant this up today as well. So I will be doing that. This cutting, or one of these cuttings, I can't remember exactly which one, came from this plant. As you can see here, I just did a top cutting, and when you cut plants like ficus, this is what they'll do. Sometimes when you're lucky or as it matures, it will put out two side shoots and become bushier. So this is often a trick if you want bushier plants rather than tall, skinny, singular stemmed plants. This is probably a more common practice outside in the garden, but it does work for many indoor plants as well, especially woody plants like ficus. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the water rooted cutting. I'm gonna use a little pre-made soil mixture that I made earlier. It's basically just potting soil with a little bit of cocoa fiber and a good handful of perlite. I planted the other two with a bit of perlite and they loved it, so I'm gonna keep it with that. And they also did good in this size container. I don't wanna get too large of a container because then it might have a little rotting issue if there's too much water stuck in the soil. So it's good to make sure you have properly sized pots so that the plants do not drown, so to speak, in the pot. Okay, those roots, see, looking pretty good. Trying to pack it down pretty solid, but not pushing really heavily because I don't want to crush the roots. However, I don't want to leave lots of air pockets either. But I think that's looking pretty good. Now it gets to join its friends, except for now that its friends are going to be upgraded into larger pots. Okay, so before I've even seen the roots, I've judged that these are probably going to be a good size. I reuse as many pots as possible, every pot I have pretty much. But I did just clean these out. I scrubbed them, I disinfected them, which is an important practice, so that if there was a plant that was in this that had some sort of disease or issue in any way, it will not be spreading to the new plant. Let's see how these roots look. I have not taken this out or even looked at the roots since I put it in here. I'm just assuming it's full of roots because it's been quite a while. And that's looking pretty good. We have, yeah, roots all over the place, feeling stiff and firm, full of roots. So I would say this is probably a good call on repotting here. So if I, for example, if I put it in, there will be room, a little room below and a little room on the sides for the roots to expand. So I'm happy. Okay, feeling pretty good about that. I will clean these off a little bit. I think that was a good upgrade. Nice. Okay, I'm actually gonna water these now too because I think they need it. I don't always water right away after replanting, but these ones I know will need it. So here we go. Let these sit here for a little while and drip out the excess water, and I'm happy. What do you say? Approved. Okay, next I am going to be potting up these little cuttings of the Begonia breakdance. I showed you guys this a couple videos ago. I feel like planting them up. So these were just, actually, it was one large leaf that I had cut into sections, which you can see here, and just plopped them on top of this. There's no drainage in the bottom either, and I watered it very sparingly, and then we got little plantlets, so that was a lot of fun. Looking forward to learning more about begonias this year. This potting soil actually is a pre-made potting soil with a little bit of perlite. I find that with my care, that works a bit better for them. The hard part is that there's no real base or stem base of this plant quite yet, so it's hard to secure it into the pot without burying it too deep. So I'm gonna just kind of do my best to cover all around it, and then hopefully over time the roots will just kind of secure it into the pot. That's looking pretty good. The thing that I struggle with, I think, a lot with begonias is they have such fine roots. They don't like to be disrupted very much, from what I'm understanding. So I try to be very careful with the roots when moving things around. Yeah, I'm actually gonna remove this now. This is one of the old leaves that I grew from. Look how interesting. So just that leaf piece has a root attached to it. It's just really cool that begonias can do this. So you can really make a lot of plants out of begonias. Okay, I think that's good. I hope that it will be happy that way. So there we have it, 3 little plantlets in their own pots now. Let's watch them grow up. That will be a lot of fun. I'm not going to water them right now because the soil medium I was using was very wet. I don't want to overwater them, so I will water them tomorrow instead. Now, this is how I choose to do things. Everyone may be a little bit different, but I find it to be a very sensitive time with plants right after potting them up, so I try to be very cautious with how I water them. For those of you who don't know what a begonia breakdance looks like, this is what they look like. They are so cool. I had some really large ones last year, which I can put a little photo in. and they were just amazing. I have some more medium-sized ones now, which you see here, and that is what those little babies that I just planted up will grow into eventually. This is a really cool begonia and very easy to care for, so I can definitely recommend that to people who also struggle with begonias. Okay, now here's a really beautiful plant, the ZZ Raven plant. Black leaves, super beautiful. However, I want to show you guys today that I too sometimes fail with plants. You see, this is a plant that I have been propagating. Some of them are not taking at all to the soil, which is totally normal when you propagate plants. You have to keep in mind that you will not have a 100% success rate. Now, this is pretty pathetic. I know some of you may say, oh my gosh, you're horrible. What did you do? What did you do? Now, I know the nature of these plants. I know they need to be very, very dry, and they're very sensitive to that. They need very little water. And I did not even water these since I planted them up. However, some of them still just didn't quite take to the soil. What I'm going to do is show you how you can kind of save some plants when this happens. Some of these are fine. They are firm, sitting upright. I don't see any issues. I'm going to leave them. Some of them are just nothing. I mean, that's not good, but it's not too late for this plant. So I'm going to take all of the ones that have rotted, and I'm going to cut away all the rotted part, and I'm going to put them in water, because these are plants that actually root quite well in water. Okay, so some of these plants are actually half sad, so to speak. It might lose the rest of the plant as well, but I don't want to bother the roots at all. They're already stressed. So I'm just going to simply cut away the rotten part, and I'm going to leave the part that's solid and hope that it will continue to live happily for us. So I'm just going to cut away all of the rotting parts of the cuttings, because this will obviously not produce anything. However, it is still firm up here, very firm. It feels good. This plant, I think, is still viable. And I will also remove actually a couple of leaves, just because I'm going to put this in water, and a lot of times when you put plants in water and there are leaves submerged, they just end up getting mushy and rotting. So that's why I have done that. Okay, so I've got two different pots I will use to water root these. I will put one leaf in here. However, I want to try the majority of the leaves in the soil. So there's one. I'm gonna reuse the same container that I used with the begonia because it worked so well. Okay, here we go. Let's see what happens with this. This is totally, I'm just winging this, so we'll check on this a little bit later. All right, so these are looking better, and I believe we will be able to save them this way. We have two water containers, which I have grown these several times from water cuttings, water rooted cuttings, so I know this will work, and the soil will be fun. If you guys want, I can do a follow-up video on this, just let me know. Here's something I want to try to touch base on. Now, I'm not a botanist. I am mainly a hobbyist, and I've learned most things myself through some education, but one question that I asked before is, if this plant is so sensitive in soil that's too filled with water, then why can it go straight in water and not rot? To my understanding, and I will try to explain this the best way that I can in my words. So believe it or not, these plants actually do need oxygen to form roots and continue living. So the plants in the water are actually taking the oxygen that's in the water and using that. Generally, the pH level is quite neutral, and there are no other organisms or bacteria in the water, keeping it pure and clean for the plant to grow. One thing you need to do, however, is change this water out pretty frequently, because if you let this water go stagnant, there will eventually be no more oxygen left in the water for the plant to use, and you'll probably start seeing algae growing, and it's not a healthy place for roots to form. So make sure you're changing out the water pretty frequently on this. And in comparison, when you have a rooted plant trying to root in soil, the oxygen basically is being used up by other microorganisms and bacteria such as nematodes, as well as the roots trying to use the oxygen. A lot of times those bacteria in the soil can also change the pH level of the soil, which is bad for some plants. It does not help with the rooting process. It's very important to have a very well draining soil. But even still, a lot of times when you pour the water into the soil, the water fills up the air pockets, which very quickly creates a lot of bacteria growth and just encourages rot, basically, which is caused by different bacteria. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Basically, the water is neutral. There is no bacteria in it. It's clean, it's pure. There's nothing competing against the plant for the oxygen, whereas in the soil, there's a lot of different factors that come in, which would quickly create rot and bacteria growth. I'm going to try to be pretty honest on these videos, which is why I just showed you a lot of my fails on the ZZ plant. I know pretty well how to take care of the plant. However, sometimes with plants, we have issues, and I don't think you should feel bad about that. I know it's fun to show beautiful plants and things like that and kind of show off what you have, but I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes errors happen, mistakes happen, and how can we correct it? So I'm going to try not to feel ashamed when that happens, and instead I'll just talk about it and show you what I'm going to do to solve it. And at the same time, I am still a learning person, so if you guys ever see something that you're like, hey, I have a great solution to this, or this is how you could do it instead, I would love to hear what you have to say about it as well. Okay, so now I'm going to deal with some philodendron that I have been neglecting. So who has a philodendron that's looking like it's just kind of wild, growing out of the pot, neglected? I do. I have some. I think I will do air layering on it. I'm pausing because I've actually had a lot of success with this specific plant, which is a hybrid between melanochrysum and verrucosum, by rooting it in water. And so I was just debating if I wanted to actually cut it and put it in water or do the air layering, but I think I'm going to stick to air layering. So I'm going to just do this really quickly. And if you guys want to know more about air layering, I'll put a little link up here to the video that I just made about air layering. But kind of forgot to mention in the previous video. So this is pre-moistened moss that I will be putting around the stem, and I've had a couple of questions about, do you re-moisten the moss during the process of rooting? And the answer is yes. Sometimes I wrap them very tight, which will require less watering, and sometimes I leave a little bit of a hole on the top so that I can spray water into the top side to keep it moist. The most important thing is that it doesn't dry out completely. I can't say exactly how often I re-moisten it. I just check it every time I water it, and if it needs it, spray it in the top and it will kind of drip down the bottom, and it's all good because you do need a little bit of air in that little pocket as well. So this is pre-moistened, and then I will keep my eye on it and moisten it as I water. Okay, I know that's really ugly, but you know what? It doesn't matter to me as long as it works, and this will work. Voila. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is just refresh the soil that's in this pot. It's been in this pot for a very long time, and I think it is good to change out the majority of the soil in a pot once it's been in that pot for a long time. This one has probably been in this pot for, I don't know, probably close to a year now, actually. I keep cutting it, which is why it looks so sad and pathetic. You can see here all the different times I've cut it already, but it just needs a rest and it needs some new soil, so I am going to freshen it up and watch it thrive again. So the roots are okay. They are not as big as I expected them to be, but they are looking healthy anyway. So that's fine. I'm going to move up just one pot size as well. Okay, I feel a little bit better about that. I mean, it doesn't look really any different at this point other than that it's in a larger pot. However, I know that the soil I just gave it has some new fresh nutrients in it, and I'm actually going to fertilize this one too with a very light fertilizer. Okay, and then this is just a large melanochrysum cutting that was inside and just wasn't thriving as much as I wanted it to. It was not getting enough humidity, which is why you can see one of the leaves is missing. I had removed it to free this new leaf that's coming in to give it a chance to open up. I was lucky enough to do that without breaking it. Usually when I try to help a plant, it just hurts it in the end, but I have succeeded, and I'm gonna move it into this indoor greenhouse, and that's pretty much all I'm gonna do with it today. And I know that's not that exciting, but we're just talking about plants today, right? We're just bopping around the greenhouse. All right, so here we have some greenhouse business. Got lots of fun stuff in here right now, and a fan that's way too big, but I don't feel like buying a smaller one right now, so it just gets a big one. So let's make room for our little melanochrysum in here. I keep it very humid in here, as humid as possible. So I don't have a hydrometer in here, but I'm gonna guess that it's around 95% almost all the time, which is very humid for some plants, a little too humid, but it's great for plant recovery and things like that. And I think this one needs a little help in recovery, so there, gets a new home in here. Pretty much every day I open this and I look at what I have growing. I have tons of small leafless things. I've got some pretty ace of spades, some pretty nice syngoniums, philodendrons, pretty beautiful. Well, that's probably really loud. Let me turn it off. Okay, that's a little bit quieter. So up here I have a lot of anthuriums, because the anthuriums just love it in here. I'm not going to go through and name them all right now. If you guys have any questions about them, I will gladly talk about them. But for now, I'm just going to kind of show you. I like the velvety anthuriums, if you haven't noticed. So this is a place that fools the plants into growing. They are all looking beautiful. Look at this new leaf though on this Philodendron luxurians. Ooh, it's so pretty. Something I was looking for a while, and I found one. So I'm just enjoying it. Metallicum, Anthurium metallicum with some crazy leaves. Check this one out. This one just kind of hardened off finally. Look at the size of that thing. Holy moly. Metallicum is awesome. And Metallicum actually grows quite well outside of the greenhouse as well, like in a little bit of a lower humidity in the home. So that's fun. Got some beautiful things growing in here that I'm very happy about. Some hybrids that I don't even know what they are yet. I'm still researching, but I'm happy to have put this greenhouse in the greenhouse, because everything seems to just take off like crazy in there. And you like to try to get in there, huh? This will not be in here in the summer because it's gonna get way too hot. It will move back outside. But anyway, so I usually open this up every day, check the soil levels or moss levels, because most of it's in moss, check to see if they need water. And then I usually have this humidifier on during the day, which is a humidifier, but it also produces warm temperature. Whereas I do have humidifiers that are only humidity, not temperature also, but this one is both, and that seems to be really great for in here. And then I have the fan running all the time. I have it next to this window, so it's getting a lot of natural light. And then I have a light above, which gives it a little bit of light, and everything seems to be happy that way. While I'm in here, I guess I want to show you another thing I got going on. So I received 2 Aglaonema pictum tricolor recently that are in really bad condition, like roots rotting, stem mush, and sometimes that happens, unfortunately. But I put them in water, and I'm trying to root them in water. One of them actually still has some of the roots left. And I have propagated this through air layering before, but I have not propagated it in water. So here we go on that little journey. So far, they have perked up a lot since I got them. The leaves, they are stiff and firm, and the mushy stem has stopped spreading, which I'm very happy about. And we'll see when these ones are ready to go in soil. That is one of the risks you get when you order plants from online or overseas. Sometimes you get the unlucky ones that don't make it. Okay, there's one more thing I want to do today, and that's look way down here at my Anthurium because I saw today that we are very close to the point where these seeds are gonna be no good anymore. So I would like to pot the seeds up. And also, this is 2 plants in 1 pot, and I would like to split it into 2 plants and make it way more stable because it's flopping all around, and give it its best life. Okay, I'm gonna start out with the seed pod. So I know I've been talking about making an Anthurium seed growing and propagation video for a while, and I am doing that. It's coming. The thing is, it's gonna take a little while because I want to make sure that I have a good amount of footage to really show what I'm talking about, and it's a really long process to do this because they take a long time to mature. But you'll get a sneak peek today of what I will do when you have these ripe seeds. Okay, I'm gonna add the seeds into this little container with some of the previous seeds that I planted up because they don't take up a lot of space, and I like this container. It works really well, so I'm gonna put them in there. And actually, you know what else I'm gonna do is take out these ones that are too tall. Then we're gonna take these seeds and just put them right on top of that moss. What you need to do is remove the skin from the seed, and then when you have the seed out of the skin, you I just put it right on top, just plop it in. So you know this thing is ripe when it's turned, this specific one, it turns bright orange, and you can feel the seeds. They come off very easily and they feel like a berry, like juicy. When it's that point, it's time to plant them up. Anthurium seeds actually do not stay viable very long, which is why you don't find them available to purchase very often, because it's a small window of when you can plant them. I'm just gonna do this quickly for you guys to see. Won't stop too much through it because it's gonna be the same thing over and over. Removing the skin, getting the seed out, and putting it right in there. Okay, the seed pod has been emptied out. Probably suggest you do this with gloves on. I don't mind getting my hands dirty, so I'll just clean them later. Our beautiful little Anthurium salad. So these do quite well in here. There's no drainage on the bottom. I water it very sparingly, and it has this little lid on it with holes in it, and it sits on the heated floor in here, and these things kind of just do their thing. I open it up every couple of days to freshen out the air, re-moisten it whenever I notice it looking dry, but I make sure there's never any water sitting on the bottom here. And these little guys are so adorable. I'm gonna put them in their own little tiny container with only sphagnum moss, actually, because I have tried this before with soil and it didn't go very well, which I'll show you when I mix the Anthurium video. So I'm going with all moss for this one. There we go. Okay, and the final step here is going to be repotting this and stabilizing this plant in the pot. You'll see actually that I have 2 more seed pods that are maturing. It'll be a while until those are ready, so those will stay on there. But this needs some help. Okay, I'm not really sure the condition of the roots of this plant. I'm gonna guess that it's pretty full with some dead roots as well. The roots they're looking pretty rough, which is why I need to really take better care of this. I think I bought it with this potting medium, which seems to be just cocoa fiber, cocoa coir, which works pretty well for Anthuriums. Okay, so first thing I want to do here, I'm going to go through and cut out all of the dry roots. You can tell quite easily the difference between the roots that have life left in them and the ones that are just hollow and no good. You never know what's going on in the roots, so that's why it's good to kind of monitor those things from time to time. So I'm not concerned about this plant surviving or not. This is one of the most tough Anthuriums that I have ever owned. These things are amazing. They live in many different lighting conditions and can tolerate dry soil and even a bit of wet soil. So this is no concern to me at all. Just me trimming these roots away will clean it up in the soil so that we can fill it back up with nutrients. So you can even cut sometimes the roots, like the tips of them off, for example. I of course don't do this unless they're dry and rotten or bad or something's wrong. For example here, I'm just going to trim it like this, and this plant will actually form new roots. I think it's looking a bit better now. Yeah. So I'll undo this really beautiful ribbon that I have here. And this leaf is looking like it's at its last leg, so we're gonna go ahead and just remove that right now too, so it's not in our way. So you can see clearly that there are 2 plants in here by even just pulling a little bit this way. So I'm gonna just pull them apart as carefully as I can, because we don't want to damage them if we can help it. Kind of massage them apart a little bit, see which areas are causing pressure. There we go. We have two plants now. I'm going to use a slightly different potting mixture for this one. It is sphagnum moss, cocoa fiber, and regular potting soil, and a little bit of perlite. So you can see on this leaf there is some calcium stains, or maybe it was foliar fertilizer that the previous grower had used on it, and I'm going to remove this. The easiest way I found to do this is to just rub it with a little bit of neem oil. Okay, so I've sprayed a little bit of a neem oil mixture on here, and I'm just going to try to rub away . Okay, that's looking a lot better. There's still a little bit left, but I'm not gonna pick away every single individual spot. I'm happy with this. So neem oil works pretty well for this, and it doesn't really damage the leaf because it's such a diluted mixture, just kind of rubbing away, working like an oil rather than saturating the leaf. So should be safe to use that. Just make sure you don't leave it sitting on the leaf for a very long time if you do spray it directly onto the leaf. But I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. It's looking a lot better, so let's get the second one done now. Alright, that's pretty much all I've got on my list for right now for the day, so thank you for hanging out with me while I do a few things. I know this was a bit sporadic and all over the place, but this is kind of an idea of the things that I do each day. It all varies and depends on what's going on and what I need to do. And I had some major spring fever today, and it was just a beautiful day, so it was a lot of fun to do this and kind of pretend like it was spring, even though it's not quite spring yet. It's just wild that it's only February, yet it feels like April or May. I hope, even though it maybe isn't good, that it will stay this way until the real spring hits, so that we have a wonderful growing season. Thank you for watching, and if you guys have any tips or comments or anything at all, just leave them below, and I try to get back to everything you guys write. So thank you for watching, and I hope you had a good time hanging out with me in here. I know I had a good time with you guys, so I'm gonna clean up and eat some lunch. Have a good one.